Alright, we have more Pokemon Unite beta details with a balance change data mine from El Chico Eevee, so let's check it out with some cooldown changes, and Blastoise getting a buff. Surf cooldown reduced 12 seconds to 10 seconds. Now my first thought was, wait a second, it's been a while since I played Blastoise, but 12 seconds? That's a long time. So I guess it was different back when Blastoise was super giga overpowered on launch, to where, yeah, that didn't really matter since one good Surf Hydro Pump combo into the enemy team, and you can kind of decide the game. Now, with like the current state of things, and this being a very long cooldown, you kind of have one chance to do it right, but also like emblems coming in and other ways of like manipulating cooldown. It's interesting, but I wonder if like now you can kind of go for that 2 Surf per team fight on the Blastoise. You know, you go Surf, Hydro Pump, Unite move, that kind of buys you some time, maneuver around, and then get another Surf Hydro Pump off. I don't know. Rapid Spin, Water Spout, still very devastating. We're going to see how this one ends up going for Blastoise, but that's a good buff, and Blastoise also getting some very significant buffs we're going to be covering later. So Slowpoke, Surf, 9 seconds to 8 seconds. I don't think that does anything for the Slowpoke, because it's kind of only getting 1 Surf per fight or 2 Surf per fight anyways, depending on how the team fight like drags on. So I don't think it's going to be getting it like enough more to matter, but any kind of buff is good, just kind of creates a little bit of extra opportunity. And then Telekinesis, 11 seconds down to 9 seconds. So really trying to make Slowpoke have a couple more chances to get a good catch and be annoying in a fight for longer. Is it still just ignored and win? Maybe. Like, when I first saw Slowbro, I'm like, wow, you have a Malzahar ult as a basic ability. That's kind of Pokemon Unite. A lot of Pokemon have ultimate level stuff from League of Legends in very short cooldown basic abilities, like Venusaur having Lux Ultimate in Solar Beam just up. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if this does anything, or if the game is like changing around enough for it to finally matter. Also, Slowpoke getting some buffs that we'll cover as well. Charizard, Fire Punch, second cooldown reduction. Wigglytuff, Dazzling Gleam, also getting a little bit of a buff. I don't know, man. The devs are really trying to push for that Wigglytuff, and it's weird because they buffed Double Slap damage, but I didn't really feel like it did too much. Now they're going to be buffing the Dazzling Gleam cooldown. I mean, how low does it go? Actually, not that crazy, because even with the like cooldown reduction from leveling up, 4 seconds, it's like barely anything. Emblems, you don't really give Wigglytuff blue buff. Shell Bell, kind of a thing. You don't do damage with Unite moves, so Energy Amplifier, not really. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think like, oh, what if you just get into like super Giga Spam Dazzling Gleam? But even then, like, the damage numbers compared to other Pokemon. That second hit has slapped in the past, especially if you get the score specs going. But then you're kind of making Wigglytuff have a weird identity, and now that Mr. Mime is still going to be really strong even after nerfs, I don't know, if you want to play like a burst mage support, Mr. Mime's good for that. Half second more Dazzling Gleam. I don't know, you just kind of become a turret. Double Slap, still didn't slap. I don't know. After that we got Azumaril, Aqua Tail getting a buff, little bit more uptime, and then Icy Wind getting a slight nerf, having to wait a half second before casting it again. So that's the current state of those. But now we can get into some damage changes. So Blastoise Water Gun buff. That is significant, because one of my issues with Squirtle is that even though Blastoise is very strong in the late game as like a tank, crowd control fiend, or also you just kind of run people over with the Rapid Spin, early game's kind of weak. Early game's pretty exploitable. You stay behind just a little too long, you lose just a little too much on those first couple of objectives as you try to evolve and get into your Night move, and then, yeah, even though you're powerful in late game, the opponent's team is so far ahead that they can kind of mitigate some of the power that you're putting out. So Squirtle having Water Gun strength, and a good amount of it, you know, 1 extra damage per level, plus 50 base, and then some scaling, you're going to feel that. But then my thought is like, okay, why play Blastoise ever when Mamoswine is just better? Mamoswine, one of the best Pokemon in the game even. You just completely command early game, you scale into the mid game, and then you just one-shot carries in the late game. Blastoise kind of has that, but like in a different kind of way. maybe this opens up Blastoise to like specific team comps and combos, but then that's where Pokemon Unite gets weird, how different team play, even like playing with a duo or trio compared to 5 stacks and like 5-stack coordination into it. So I think this opens up more strategy, but I don't think it makes Blastoise any better for playing solo, unless like you're just a dedicated Giga Blastoise main, in which case you get one more camp, so that experience differential, you know, you're not behind half a level comparatively, so now you're getting, you know, a little bit more advantage over the opponent, maybe finding a level a little earlier when it matters, and then Hydro Pump damage and Surf Up time. Yeah, it works, but like I said, I think there's just better picks out there, mostly just for mains and specific strategies, or if you have a duo and you want to do some cool lane stuff. Wigglytuff Pound buff is interesting. So kind of like going with Double Slap. Double Slap was weak and got a buff and feels a little better, but still kind of drops off. Pound, now you get those big steals and it feels kind of spooky on that Jigglypuff. And then here we go, Mr. Mime Nerfs. So Psychic getting hit, and this is the weird thing. Until Power Swap is fixed, like Power Swap is really strong. It's still the better moveset when Power Swap Plus isn't bugged. So because like Flavor of the Month, like it just shows the stupidity of how Pokemon Unite balance and community interactions are, that Mr. Mime, always S tier, but people didn't want to learn how to play it because it takes a lot of like time. It's very finicky, skill cappy kind of Pokemon. You have to steal everything from the opponent and then be a very high denial Pokemon while also having like really good skill shot usage. You have to land the perfect timing on your what used to be guard swap, and then you still have to land a skill shot to get the stun. Also barrier placement into wall bangs. A lot of hard stuff to do on the Mr. Mime, so by just making the damage numbers better and buffing the tether, it made Mr. Mime more accessible. So effectively just kind of raising the floor and also raising the ceiling, because they gave like damage and healing and all kinds of weird stuff to Mr. Mime. So with the floor being raised, it became more accessible, but now like you just gave everyone access to an already busted Pokemon while buffing its raw power. So yeah, Mr. Mime didn't need it. It was S tier, became triple S tier, but because Psychic is the fun move, like I always wanted Psychic to work. Also, we can just kind of like put Mr. Mime up, I guess, on the screen so there's something else to look at. I always wanted Psychic to work, but no matter how much I used it before like all the changes, it just wasn't good, even though it was really fun. It's really fun throwing a light screen out there and then hitting someone with it and like using that to steal, or also just kind of like running into people with the tether and then getting the multi-man Psychic stun. But then the power wasn't there. Like, no matter what you do, Confusion was better. Then they buff Psychic, but it still has that feeling to where it's like, yeah, you're doing cool things, but Confusion is still better, just for the burst, just for the harder stun, and just for like the other things that it allows you to do, where like, if you can tether someone, stun them, and then also get like a wall bang into a double stun from better range, or just like tether onto an ally and then like keep spacing on them, you could do some really, really wacky things with it. But Psychic became Flavor of the Month, Mr. Mime was already busted, Psychic's getting nerfed, Confusion is only like, I think still like even with bugged Power Swap, Confusion has the higher skill cap, better play. And then if that gets fixed, now everyone's going to be running Confusion because they got comfortable on Mr. Mime, and then the champion is going to be nerfed worse than before it got the first set of buffs, because that's how Pokemon Unite rolls, and the player base just being very strange in how they interact. Also, Power Swap damage going down, I don't think that matters. Again, it's all about just Confusion stun. That's your damage, that's your combo. Those extra ticks are nice, but like 20 per tick, ticks twice a second. Feel it a bit if you're tethered to someone for like 5 seconds, which usually happens in between like stuns and cooldowns. Less slow, that's the big one. I honestly think like the slow percentage is gonna be huge on that. It's also nerfed Psychic further, because now they're getting out of like double shock range, and I don't know, we're going to see how Mr. Mime lands after this, but yeah, it's still like Fake Out, having crazy secure, and then having that mastery to just deny everything from the opponent and being so far ahead of them while rocking crazy, like carries don't even have as much damage as Mr. Mime, but it's still like a very technical, high skill shot Pokemon, so we're going to see where that goes. After that, we have Slowbro getting buffs, so Water Gun getting good amount of damage tick, more damage than the Squirtle Water Gun, but like Slowbro is still going to be a mega liability in lane, and that's also why I don't like it. That Slowpoke is just awful, and Slowbro doesn't really do anything. So this with the Surf and Telekinesis buffs, I don't know. I still don't think like the Pokemon's kit can work with how Pokemon Unite plays. Kind of like all these other playstyles that are coming into the game. It's like, yeah, it would be cool if they were viable, but it really isn't. Ignore Slowbro, win the game, D tier. Absol, Pursuit Nerf. Next auto attack stays empowered for 3 seconds, so it means you don't just get to like hang on for it or have to like chase someone down. They're X speeding away or kiting out of the fight. So, a little bit of nerf onto the Absol. Cramorant. I saw the Cramorant changes initially, just from like the beta announcement. I went, okay, let's see a Whirlpool buff. Let's see Surf Hurricane buff. Nah, Air Slash healing down. It just kind of shows like the Pokemon community is so trash that they lose to Dive Air Slash Cramorant. And then I watch how it happens. They just sit there. They don't even like try to kite it. They don't even like try to time where Cramorant's going to go and play around cooldowns or anything. No, they just like stat check the dueling Cramorant moveset and then they just lose. But any amount of skill and then you just hard beat out the Cramorant. Healing going down, whatever. Surf Hurricane, always the best, but still kind of weak compared to other mages. Stuff is weird. Aegislash. So Aegislash is getting a tuning right here. We're seeing a buff on Ironhead and a nerf onto Shadow Sneak. So trying to calm down that early game, making it to where Aegislash isn't clearing as fast, isn't ganking as hard, or isn't laning and getting as many secures by nerfing the hits on Shadow Sneak. That seems like a pretty decent little change right there. Not going to find like the crazy executes, especially into like auto attacks and stuff. Where you're like, whoa, okay, you know, Honedge and Doublade just kind of taking me out right now. Does it have, I think when it evolves it loses that, but either way, it's like, okay, that early game potency going to be toned down a bit, Aegislash not scaling as hard. I think that's a fair way of balancing it. Azumaril, so we're seeing cooldown reduction, we're seeing stat changes, that's something else, and then we're also seeing Play Rough getting buffed, and then Aqua Tail. If you're activating this move, next 3 auto attacks will reduce the cooldown of all moves by 0.8 instead of 0.5 when an enemy is hit from a distance. This might be it. This might be what makes Azumaril pretty potent. Like, it just kind of falls off, but like, you've seen it. There's times where Azumaril gets ahead. It just kind of, I wouldn't say take over the game, but like, when Azumaril is not useless, it's pretty good. So we've all seen like pretty good Azumarils, and now this is just going to give those Azumaril players a lot more to work with and going to make the game pretty interesting. Yeah, I think like we have viable now. Like, floor is raised, ceiling is also raised. If you're down bad, you're not out of the game, and if you're ahead, you are just doing more. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Azumaril goes with this. Also, same thing for Buzzwole. So not only from like the beta announcement where it was like cooldown changes, but also just getting move tuning. So Mega Punch, there we go. That's what you want to see. You want to see a competitive level of damage for Buzzwole to take wild Pokemon with. Nothing compared to like a Mr. Mime or supporters or tanks or anything really, but at least now it's not going to lose everything. Very low damage, very low base damage, a little bit of better dueling. All right, that's interesting. And then Smackdown, damage buff on the Smackdown, going to be in scaling and base damage. Buzzwole with the recent changes, really feeling like, yeah, it gets to make you not play the game. You cannot duel a Buzzwole, but the problem is, like, if the team fight breaks out and Buzzwole doesn't have its Unite move or doesn't get a KO in the early stages of a fight, then it just doesn't really do anything, but does have some pop-off potential. So much like the Azumaril, raising the floor, making it less useless when behind, but now leaving the door open for if it gets ahead. And Mew, basic attack is the only nerf. I thought we were going to see a lot more just gutting of Mew with how powerful and impressive that Pokemon is from the beginning of the game. Just Solar Beam access, instantly. Yeah, that's not fair at all. So now we're going to see it's where empowered auto attack is going to not be one-shotting as much with less damage per travel threshold, but still pretty solid overall. But now you're not going to see the shenanigans. You're not going to see like the stupidity of what Mew is comboing into, but still a very, very strong Pokemon. So yeah, that's what we have. My overall thoughts, seems good. I think there's other things that could be addressed or changed or done differently, but we're going to be having more Pokemon being added in. Some other changes. Just seems like decent little balance patch. Alright. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.